Greetings, friends. It's hard to believe that we have already arrived at our final plenary for the 2021 Chisholm Annual Gathering. I'm George Graham, Vice President of Chisholm. I'm pleased to introduce our session this afternoon featuring the Reverend Dr. Deitre Weisbacher as our keynote speaker. Before we hear from Dr. Baker, I want to thank our partner, the pension boards of the United Church of Christ, for sponsoring this session. And here's a brief message from the pension boards.
What could the pension boards be for the church in years to come? What if United Church of Christ pastors lived out their lives and ministry completely debt-free? Imagine if financial vitality and wellness were their everyday norm. What if local church pastors witness transformation daily and empower their congregations to become vibrant leaders with vision and purpose? Imagine congregations uniting for a cause, taking care of their neighbors, bringing hope to their local communities while leaving a legacy of mission for the next generation. What if authorized ministers honored their bodies with rest? They could attend no-cost wellness retreats to reflect, re-engage, and revive their calling to ministry with clarity and substance. What if United Church of Christ clergy could retire with dignity through financial resources which supplemented their income? Imagine it? No, it's real. It's happening. These are just a few examples of how the legacy of the pension board's work continues to anticipate and meet the growing needs of those who faithfully serve the church. We're always looking beyond tomorrow and strengthening the foundation of faith, finance, health, and wellness to resolve the future challenges of those we serve.
Thank you, pension boards, for your support of UCC clergy and lay employees, including many of us at Chisholm Member Ministries, and for your support of this session. We welcome the Reverend Dr. Deitre Weisbacher here today to help us conclude the exploration of our theme, Together in Hope. Dr. Baker is Director of Contextual Education and Visiting Professor of Community Engagement at Eden Theological Seminary in St. Louis, a seminary of the UCC. I have enjoyed getting to know Dr. Baker in this context since I started a Doctor of Ministry at Eden last fall. Prior to her coming to Eden, Dr. Baker worked as a chaplain, program developer, community organizer, church planter, and pastor. Her broad experience in ministry and engagement gives her a unique perspective about what it means to be together in hope across ministry settings and working together toward justice. After Dr. Baker's presentation, there will be time for Q&A and discussion. You are welcome to enter your comments and questions at any time in the chat, and then we'll have an opportunity to interact more afterwards.
Good afternoon. Greetings. Thank you for having me. I'm the Reverend Dr. Deitre Weisbacher, and thank you for the honor of having me as your closing plenary speaker and keynote. And our topic, just for a few minutes, I promise I won't be long for this afternoon, as you all are processing and gathering your thoughts as you get ready to bring them back to context for application and implementation, we hope. The thought, together in hope. The tension between the world as it is and the world as it should be. Together in hope. The tension between the world as it is and the world as it should be. I should say right away that these words are not my own. They come from Dennis Jacobson, a community organizer in my faith organizing tradition, the Gamaliel Network. He wrote a book called about community organizing. And in that book, he opens up the first two chapters. And the first chapter is about the world as it is. And the second chapter is about the world as it should be. And I don't know about you, but like me, as a community organizer, as a professor, as a theologian, as an organizer of a campaign that involves youth and families and formerly incarcerated people trying to regain and restructure their lives, I every day wake up and sit with the tension of the world as it is and the world that should be. Like many of you who joined your profession, I'm just guessing, who are in social service organizations out throughout this network, you're there. I'm sure of it. Because you see the world as it is, and in your heart and in your spirit and in your soul, you are working for every day when you go into that job, when you serve people, you're working for the world as it should be. So I thought we all take a journey today. We all take a journey to remember why we're in this work. I believe that will bring us together in hope. I'm going to share a little bit about my own story, my own journey of deciding that I'm going to live in this tension, discovering this tension. And then I want to offer what I believe are some beginning capacities and some beginning questions as we continue to work together in hope for the world that should be. So a little bit about me. I was born in Rockland County, New York, in a little town called Nyack Hospital in Rockland County, New York. And I was there with my mom and my older sister. And my mom, not at first, but at some point, somewhere around when I turned 5 years old, became a single mom. My dad moved out to California, and my mom and my dad weren't married. And my mom became a single parent. And I watched my mom struggle financially. We were definitely poor. We were definitely beholden to the welfare systems of that time. Hated going to the store with food stamps. Hated needing help. I was that kid. I hated that we needed help. I remember that. I hated that. Felt a lot of shame about that. And what I remember about the systems, at some point in that journey, the crack epidemic hit the country. It hit New York really hard. My mother, who was vulnerable because of her struggling and because of her own trauma, vulnerable, as many people are that engage in drug use. And she got addicted to crack, cocaine. And our family was already sort of in trouble, but that really put our family in crisis. And I remember, thinking my mom, she loving person, cared about us so much, still wants so much for us. I remember when we would go to these systems, we go to welfare, we go to get housing. And in our city, there's a complex where all these services are hosted. And these are nice buildings, better buildings than we lived in, lots of resources, lots of people. And I just couldn't figure out why could they not really help my mom. We got served, you all, but we didn't get transformed. Our trajectory wasn't changed, except the changes that we made in our trajectory ourselves. And so I walked away with a grumble in my stomach, And when I went back to our neighborhood, I noticed we lived in a, sort of a mixed neighborhood with poor people and middle-class people and Black and brown people, all kind of Black people, all kind of Spanish people. And I would go to school, and there was another neighborhood that's around there, and people clearly lived different. They had different things around their house that we didn't have around our houses. And I just remember saying, this is not the way it's supposed to be. If Kim has this at her house, then Deitre I should have this at my house too. Why do we have to come home and be hungry sometimes? Why is our housing not stable? Why is it hard for my mom to get recovery and services that she needs? How come no one's helping my mom become who she really is? Instead of continuing to put her down and make her worse off, I knew something was wrong with the world as it was. And some of you had that experience in your life. You're with me in this conversation. You had that experience in your life where you're like, this isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. There's something better for all of us. And I knew there was something better for my mother and for my family. And as a little, kind of strong-headed little girl, I just, kind of just was determined to experience something different. And I became, one of the few people in my family to graduate from college. And I went to college, and I went to the military, and I became an officer in the Air Force. And I got out and went to seminary and got my master's degree. I think I'm the only person in my family to have an advanced degree, to get my doctorate. It's that same place, you all, that's pushing me. When I would look at my neighbor's house and what they had, and I look at what my mom experienced and the support that she didn't receive, that she could have received from systems that we serve in now. And I knew that the world as it is was not the world as it should be. Can I get an amen out there? I want you to hear your own story. I want you to hear your own narrative and that moment. And so I just want to say a few words about the world as it is, the world as it should be, the tension, and some of the changes that we have to make in order to continue moving towards the world as it is. That's what we're in this for. We want the world as it should be. That's why we're in this. The world as it is, Jacobson would say, is not what God wants. The world as it is, you all, it's racist. And in this particular context, it's built on white supremacy and anti-Blackness. And for those of us who are of faith, it co-opts faith, right? The world as it should be, we can feel it in our spirits. We can feel it in our bones, right? It's truth, it's love, it's humanity, it's dignity. It's my mom accomplishing her dreams and engaging in systems and ways that helped her to do that. It's being restored, it's being transformed, it's being free. We know what the world looks like when it's the world as it should be. It's a world that helps and does not hurt. So here's some things. I'm going to show you some slides, just some conversation pieces for us. I'm going to share my screen and just share some slides while I talk to you for a minute. This is something that I think we need to talk about. An assumption of mine as we talk about how do we move, right? Where we live in a tension between the world as it is and the world as it should be. And I believe that all social issues have roots in social, economic, and political injustice and inequity, which means most of us, I think in the room, work at the bottom of our social service issue is an economic, political injustice or inequity. I think you all would agree with me. And if that is the truth, then part of our work has to be to dismantle those inequities and that inequality. So the first thing that we have to do is look upstream. Somebody say, look upstream, look upstream. This is something from the Gamel Network that we always do in our training to help people see if there was a baby in some bath water, if there was a baby in a river somewhere drowning, our instinct, everybody would go and get that baby. Everybody would get the baby out, get out. Absolutely. I have a 2-year-old. I hope that if my baby is drowning, you go get my baby. But at some point, we have to look upstream and ask the question, who is putting the babies in the river in the first place? And most of our work in the sector that's represented in the organization and the networks here are people, good people, who pull babies out of bathwater. We pull the babies out of rivers. We give direct service, emergency, critical, necessary aid. But what we have to start doing, right? The Anti-Racism Center, the Advocacy Center, right? Means we have to start looking upstream and say, what are the structures and what are the systems? Who and what is putting the babies in the river in the first place, right? So the question is, who are the babies and what is the river of your work, of your ministry, of your context? That's one of the questions that I want you to ask today as you think about the world as it is, right? Because just pulling babies out of the river is not going to move us from the world as it is to the world as it should be. We're maintaining the world as it is if that's all we do. I don't know how many of you seen Black Panther, but this is something, another shift I think we have to make in the sector that's represented in this conversation. This is Okoye and Nakia having a conversation after King T'Challa is killed. And Nakia is asking Okoye to come with her. And Okoye says, no, I have to stay and serve my people. I serve the throne, she says, no matter who sits upon it. And Nakia rebukes her and says, you know what? You serve your people, but I will save my people, right? It's the same conversation that we had about the babies and the bathwater in the river, right? Are we going to continue simply to serve, or are we going to save? Which means, are we going to be about the transformation, the work that will change structures and systems, dismantle and break them down? If everything that we work on is rooted in inequity and injustice. I want to put up a definition of racism for you because I think it's important. It's not just racial prejudice, which many of us know. It's also the misuse of power by systems and institutions. And many of us are part of institutions that have misused power. So not only to move from the world as it is to the world as it should be, we can't simply take babies out of the river. We have to look upstream. We have to figure out what does it mean in our context to not only serve, but also to save. And then as features, most of us, of the non-profit industrial complex, we have to dismantle our association and the practices of it. And so let me help you identify yourself in the nonprofit industrial complex and some of its markers. It means that some of us are going to change who gives us money. For some of us, it means that we cannot keep on doing state-sponsored and supported forms of inequality and disenfranchisement through our organization. For some of us, it means that we inherited soft control, a soft control form from the welfare state, right? This is a quote. Mitigating tensions produced under capitalism, meaning we filled in a gap that governance should have filled in the social service sector. And we have to start directing For the world to move as it should be, we have to start directing the gaze and the attention to fixing the real problem. This is just a definition of the nonprofit industrial complex if you've never seen one. The system of relationships between the state, federal governments, the owning classes, foundation, and nonprofit social service and social justice organizations. This, you want to talk about together in hope? This is something that we have to do in order to move from the world as it is to the world as it should be. We have to build power in every arena, corporate, that's what the slide is, communications, administrative, judicial, legislative, electoral. We have to build power in every one of those arenas in order for us to move to the world as it should be. So here's my final question for you. Name one change in the public square that can make your organization unnecessary. Name one change. If it happened, all education is equitable. Complete and universal health care. Complete community-based mental health resources. Name one change in the public square that can make your organization unnecessary. My final invitation is to insert that change, that thing, that piece, some part of change as the testament of hope within your organization. What do I mean by a piece, that thing? I mean, what is the advocacy that you can work on? What is the legislation that you can work on? What are the partners that you can build relationship with that are impacted by the issues that you're working on? Who are those people? Do you have relationships with them? Can you build relationships with them? Can you move towards permanently changing some aspect of the work or the issue or the problem that your organization is in the business of serving? I'm gonna say it again. I want you to take a piece, just a piece of that thing that would make your organization unnecessary. I'm asking you to implant in your mission and the vision of your organizations a seed of hope, right? That at some point in the future, right, in some world in the future, that your organization will be unnecessary, right? If healthcare is solved, right, for some of us, our organizations would be unnecessary, right? If there's education equity, some of our missions would be unnecessary. If there was affordable housing, some of our organizations would be unnecessary. If there was jobs for everyone that paid a living wage that people could take care of their families, some of our organizations would be unnecessary. So I'm saying, in your missions, plant that seed of hope. Look upstream. Think about what it means to save and not simply what it means to serve. What it means to save and not simply what it means to serve. Do a part of that with the hope that your organization will at some point be unnecessary. Together in hope, the world as it is. But today we plant a seed, our seed, for the world as it should be. God bless.
So I will invite Dr. Baker to turn on her camera and turn on her sound. And we have quite a bit of time for a conversation. And I think you would have heard quite a few amens when you asked for them. Thank you so much, so much for bringing us this message of hope, but also message of challenge. I would be interested in hearing you unpack a little bit more serving versus saving. I feel like that is such an important distinction, and I think I saw a lot of response to it. Talk a little bit more with us about what that means and how to think about that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
I think honestly, that part of my shaping and view comes from the ways I've been shaped and formed by community organizing, particularly in the Gamel network. So the foundation of that is, sort of the story I told is sort of the way we always teach it, sort of this, rough idea of, okay, there's a crisis, there's some direct needs, there's this, that are happening in the community that have to be addressed, and churches and nonprofit organizations have always been a part of addressing those needs. Sometimes as lobbied by some of the writers of the nonprofit industrial complex and conveners of that conversation, that has sometimes distracted, I think, from us getting to the heart of the matter. And so that serving versus saving conversation is a calling, and I think you heard it roughly enough, to nonprofits to say, okay, yeah, all right, we definitely have critical needs and, sort of issues in front of us, the things we need to take care of, but we got to take a minute and look and say, wait a minute, what are the systems and structures that are upholding, the necessity of our organization, and how can we in some way be a part of dismantling that? And so, now, pushing towards my, community organizing background, we talk about that as building power, like that systems and structures, concede nothing without grassroots power. And so, that's sort of what's built into that call, is that you have to build power with the people that you're actually serving in these institutions to dismantle the structures and systems that are impacting them in a negative way. And so that's what I'm getting at, is that we actually have to organize. And I know, depending on our missions, our institutions, how much of that we can do is varied, but I'm sending a call that is critical for our social service work, social service sector work of the future.
Thank you. Elise Berry asked a question, can you talk about your understanding of the social contract and what is the government's role in providing an equitable life for people?
Well, thanks for the question, Elise. I think it's fair to say that, I think there's widespread disagreement and views about how much the government should play in providing an equitable life. I think, obviously there's some that say, you go for your own, if you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. That's your problem, your fault. I think, rooted in a faith tradition that has certain values about equity, we would come at that with the perspective that the government should secure basic things for human dignity and life. And while we don't expect the government to solve all our problems, I don't think anybody's asking for that. I think a large swath of people across race and background would say, hey, housing, education, healthcare are things that the government should have a big role in for someone said for the common good. I think there's large agreement about that across race and communities and even economic status. But I want to be truthful. I don't think we all see it that way.
Thank you. Monica Wedlock-Kilpatrick said, you have me imagining the ministry work we could be doing in helping people and communities to thrive and live abundantly if we didn't have to spend our ministry work helping people simply survive and navigate. what it is. And then Danny Cartwright followed up with a question: do you believe an organization can actually do the serving and the saving at the same time, or do you really need to make a choice?
That's good. I love it. So I'm going to go Monica first and then Danny. Monica, I think you hear me, like, I see that through my mom's story. Like, when I look at my mom now, I just think about all the resources, sort of, Danny, that was spent on my mom and us sort of surviving. And what could have happened to my mom and her dreams if there was some creative interventions around saving that could have produced a transformative, at least economic future for our family, and my mom being able to, live into some of her dreams and some of her full dignity and worth and value. And that just didn't happen at the hands of the systems of a progressive state. I'm from New York, I'm from a state where they try to do some of this government stuff, if you will, and provide some of these basic needs. But it wasn't transformative, as I said, for our family. And so I think it's hard, right? Danny, to answer your question. So, in my community organizing world, we have very sharp lines, like, don't come to us with that serving stuff. Like, that's not what we do. We don't do the serving stuff. We partner and we have collaboration and connections with folks that do serving stuff, but we do the saving work. We do the liberative work. And so I think at a minimum, we can build collaborative relationships that merge those sectors in ways that help us build power together, because again, I want you to get my baby. Please don't leave my baby drowning, right? There are people that are hungry. There are people that need housing. They need folks to do the social service sector work in the gaps that our government is not doing it. But I think we have to do it in a way, one that is prophetic and that speaks to the structures and systems, that frames our work and our conversations and narratives around our work as a piece of trying to dismantle sort of the structure and the system, and that we're in collaborative relationships with people whose work is more on the saving side, that we work together to build base and power to change those structures and systems. And I think we're pretty siloed right now.
So I wanted to ask about how your suggestions or thoughts about how to build those relationships between the servers and the savers. And then I want to ask about how to build relationships. So we're a faith-based association of health and human service organizations identified with United Church of Christ, building the relationships between health and human services that are part of the United Church of Christ and congregations. Mm-hmm. What ideas do you have there?
Well, I guess I'll tell a story of, just last night, of sort of an emerging example of that. A lot of you all have heard about Bell projects across the country. And so St. Louis has a Bell project. Was on the phone last night with Mike and Arch City Defenders, who are sort of workers in the space. And we were working with the family, right, that was having a mental health crisis. The family member is in jail. We're trying to get the family member out, right? Because we're abolitionists. We don't think jail is going to help this person get better, right? But this is actually the safest place for the person to be at this particular moment, but we'd like to find a safer place. So Mike gets on, he says, hey, there's social service agencies that can do a mental health assessment of this person. We're going to go in, we're going to do the mental health assessment of this person, and then we're going to work with, he's texting, the prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. And then he's like, you know what, we need to go ahead and just bring this to the community. We need to have a public announcement. They're about to, start an organization that sort of is the abolition home in St. Louis. Like, basically, if you can't call the police, this is who you call. This is who you call to get mental health services. This is who you call to get wraparound services for your families. And then we will work with them to build the base with, people that have been victims of violence, people that want real safety but don't know how to experience it and see it. But then how do we go and legislate and change and get funds directed to our communities in ways that don't increase incarceration, but that decarcerate our communities and actually help us have better public safety? So that's just an example of what can start to happen as social sector folks and social justice community organizing folks moved closer together in proximity. And to your question, George, I think church congregations folks, like, we just cannot stay in the building. Like, we're increasingly becoming irrelevant there. We have to get out and also be a part of those conversations and that work, and the resources that we have, be a part of that conversation and work. And I believe the Spirit is there waiting to draw up some hope in our communities if we would collaborate and build relationship with each other.
Thanks. Stephanie Franklin said, sometimes the issue is that providers are not asking the families what they need, letting them drive the process. Providers are assuming. We have to stop that, give the families back the power. And I think that Elise responded to that. Yes, there's a lot of white savior complex and HHS nonprofits.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think you guys hear it. I mean, I don't think many folks in the social service sector view their work as being accountable to their clients and to the communities that their clients come from. I don't think that's generally the framework that folks are thinking about as they sit down and provide services, if you will, right? I'm here to help. I'm here to help you. I have something that you need.
These are the services we provide.
We provide,
Right.
And it's not really like we're accountable to you. Let's center your stories and your experiences of our services at the center of what we do, and feedback and change and critique and shape and direct what we do. That's generally not the way that we do that. And so I think, at least all the organization in these rooms have to ask, okay, let's look at our governance. Who's on there? Are any of the people that we serve in our governance? Or just, the power dealers and money folks on the boards of our organizations? What is that makeup? How is our programming structured? Who gets to decide about our programming? Are people who are impacted and receive our services at the heart, in the middle, have decision-making power around those programs and services, that they can be adjusted, they can be more accurate, and then, of course, that they can get to the heart of the problem, which generally isn't the service that we're providing. So that you will hear in there the relationships that need to be built, the collaborations that need to be sniffed out as you bring your proximity, you bring people who are actually receiving and experiencing things at the middle of it. You'll begin to get a picture of what needs to be built when you have a relationship with them. Yeah.
Sandy Sorensen mentioned, she said that, and she's head of our DC office of the United Church of Christ. She said it's the stories of those most impacted, stories held by our Chisholm communities, our members, that make policy advocacy powerful and effective. Just reminding that those stories are important in advocacy.
Absolutely.
Emily was talking about wage disparity as being a conversation on the national level. We're church related. What do you think is the church's responsibility in creating equitable wage scales?
I think first, but nonprofits first have to have the deep conversation about doing that as an organization themselves first, right? I say the same thing about community organizers. Like, we're out here fighting for 15 and we don't have healthcare for organizers. Like, we can't keep, asking the structures and systems to do things that we are not willing to do as institutions ourselves. So I think, the first justice work is generally internal, and there's always something that needs to be done in our own institutions as we begin to step out. So I think that's one. I think then two, again, I think the heart of it are the relationships. To me, that's what community organizing is. It's all about building those relationships. And we tend to silo ourselves. We tend to silo ourselves and sort of get stuck in what we're doing, or, the issue that we think is important. And we have a really hard time reaching around and outside of that. To sort of the bigger thing, I would say, as a theologian, that God is up to, that God is painting and drawing, that actually there's an invitation out there waiting for us to hop into it, but we can't see it because we're so focused sort of on our road and our street. But when we come out, I mean, I've been a witness. You know, I organize with formerly incarcerated people. Mm-hmm. They blow my mind every day. And what they always say to the rest of us is, you know, the people who experience the problem are closer to the solution. So if you really want some solutions and you don't have the people that are closer to the problem, you're not going to get to a solution anytime soon.
That is a great thought. I was thinking about a workshop that I was in yesterday by Sam Jewell, or maybe it was Tuesday, about using a trauma-informed lens to create hope. And that really the thing that builds resiliency are relationships. Mm-hmm. And so for people who are in direct service, people who are working with people, those relationships, it's so important that we reach out instead of become isolated and become siloed.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, I you know, sometimes when I'm doing work with, you know, service providers or whatever, you know, so I'll just give an example. You know, I was a juvenile, a chaplain for kids who were incarcerated for 14 years. And it would actually always piss me off when, you know, people who are running the organization, you know, they would be making decisions. And then I just stop them and ask them a question like, have you ever been to this kind of hearing? You know, have you been in the rooms that you put these kids in? Like, do you know what that feels like? Have you ever spent the night in just, you know, as part of your formation to be a leader in this organization? You know, have you spent the night in juvenile just to see what it's like? Have you eaten the food here? Have you put on the clothes? Like, you want to serve people that you know nothing about, what they're experiencing, and you're hesitant to really involve yourself. And so, yeah, at a minimum, you know, like try to walk a day in the shoes of the people that you're serving as best you can, to get a better perspective and view. And again, close your proximity to the folks that you're serving. So it's not transactional, but it's you're with and not for or to.
Right. Stacy Park just asked a great question. How do we speak to those in power who expect us to be grateful for what they give and believe that we could change our lives if we really wanted to? They don't see the system at fault, but rather the individual and the community. Mm-hmm. She says, in the book, The Sum of Us, the suggestion that we speak to white power and help them, those that fear losing ground, see that the path to equity lies in helping those we have held down. It seems like a strategic approach.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, this is my thing. You know, when I think about just like a power map, like in the state that I'm in Missouri, you know, I know that a lot of the money, at least in our state, is held, you know, majority white folks who may not share my particular set of faith and values. But when I look at that map another way, I see that sort of 99% of the people, so that's 1% that have, you know, all the nickels. But we believe that power is demonstrated by organized money and people. So I would say, yeah, okay, there's a group of folks that definitely have the organized money, you know, but we have the organized people. And so what I try not to do, I try not to spend too much time convincing the unconvincible. They may come along at some point. But I think that there was a lot of ground to be gained between those of us of like minds. And so that's where we try to spend our time, is making sure that people who share our values and share our commitments, that we're together, you know. And I believe people in the social service sector and a lot of folks in the grassroots, we have similar values. We have similar aims. We have a similar vision of what the world as it should be should look like. Let's join forces.
I wanted to ask a question specifically about racial injustice and equity. And so we were together, Chisholm, our annual gathering is always this week in March. We were together a year ago. And for most of us, it was the last trip that we took before the pandemic. It was the last time we were together before we learned about the deaths of Arbery, and then Breonna Taylor, which is coming up on a year next week, and then George Floyd in May. So we've had the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, and then just this increased awareness about racial inequity. But in Greater St. Louis, you're coming up on close to 7 years since Michael Brown's death, and have been grappling in a public way for longer, I feel like, than we as nationally have been grappling with it in such a public way. Can you talk about that, the past 7 years, and sort of what you've learned?
Well, I mean, first, I have to push back on the frame of the question, George.
Okay.
And I'll explain why.
Please do.
Because I just want to say that.
I know it didn't start then. I know that.
I know, right. So for Black and brown folks, it's like, okay, this is y'all awakening. You know what I mean? This is mostly white folks and white people awakening to this moment. We've been living this for a while. So I think it's just important to say that.
Yeah.
As we enter the question, and not to diminish that it was a moment, even for someone who is a person of color. Mike Brown being murdered changed my life. It's what put me on the trajectory of what I'm doing now, of being an organizer. So I just want to lift those up. But, it's been hard. I live in Missouri. I live in Missouri. This is in New York. This is in California. I would say that we've been able to build some power around sort of what we call race class narratives. So we won. So for example, somebody asked in the chat, what have you guys been able to build or won? We were able to win a minimum wage in our state. And the way that we were able to do that, because you can't win anything in our state without quite a large coalition and collaboration across race and economic lines. And we were able to win that as we centered around sort of some of these common values and things that everybody wants for their family and for their future. And so we're moving. I mean, it's like anybody, it's a journey. But what I feel is different is that you don't have the same kind of this isn't a conversation we need to have or have to have. That's pretty much disappeared, at least from the public discourse in our community. People understand that, if you're going to be about sort of justice work, that you need to attend to that history and to the presence of that in your organization and your institution. I would say who's a little bit slower at it are our churches.
And why,
I think there's still
why
quite
do you think that is?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think it's because, sort of, at our denominational levels, the same sort of call hasn't been made. I would just say there's something about that's not sort of penetrating our church life and missions, or makes that conversation still, in some places pretty hard in some church communities, particularly ones I would say where there's not proximity of people of color.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, my perception anyhow is that there are certainly a number of churches that are inward facing by trying to just survive or get through. And
absolutely.
Like you said, we need to invite people outside the buildings to do things there. And this is part of that. This is definitely part of that. I also wanted to talk a moment about the next generation of leaders. So for the past couple of years, anyhow, and your history might go back further than that, you've been involved in contextual education at Eden Theological Seminary. Can you talk about calling and preparing and engaging that next generation of leaders into the work?
Yeah, this is what my life is about now, my whole, it's what my life is about now. I didn't think at 45 I'd be preparing sort of for, legacy, but I, I see, obviously, we're very energetic, at the beginning of our organizing and ministry careers. And I do believe, been a part about changing the world, but it's not even, it's not done yet. And so understanding that we have a limited amount of time in life, how to advance and see that work and that hope into the future. And so an intentional move to put myself in a space, particularly, just honestly for churches, like I'm one that is kind of weary of like where I see churches are and where they're going. And so this is my way of saying, look, church, I wouldn't be who I am without you. I really need you to survive. I really still think you have something valuable for the community and that's life-giving. It has to transform and change. Let me see what I can do about that, making it not so hard for the next, generation of leaders to be able to move the church forward. And so, that's part of being here. And even as an organizer, I'm not a full-time organizer. And so that means I'm not in the dots and whittles and weeds. All I do is spend time with other organizers, training and prepping and strategizing and teaching and supporting. Like that's my work, is to help them, multiply themselves, to multiply sort of the group of us that have a perception of this work that's going to bring us to a future place and to some future hope. And so that's all my life is about right now, is time with leaders, either in the academy, in the church, or in the community, or in the streets, and helping us prepare for a long fight, but a strong one.
Can you talk a little bit about the role of health and human service organizations, particularly faith-based ones, in helping to prepare that next generation of leaders?
Man, this is what I always, you're sitting on the gold mine. Yeah, this is what I mean. Health and social service ministries have impacted people. You're serving them every day, but they have not been called often through our social service sector organizations to the fight for transformation and liberation, for justice. And we haven't organized them there. We have more contact and relationships, or at least the possibility, if we move past sort of transactional relationships related to service and programs. We have an abundance of relationships and connections with the people who can change the world. If we would levy and adjust our missions to develop that leadership, to build power with people that are impacted, social services ministries are right in the mix if they make that shift.
Emily just posted, there's an elder in this room who knew and worked with Medgar Evans. We're learning about martyrdom. Medgar Evans is a martyr and more exists. Let's stay true to the faith and acknowledge our nation's Black ancestors in it.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't a fight that we're creating. I think the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement for Black lives, is it's connected to a historical struggle for liberation and freedom that our ancestors have been fighting since they were brought here. So absolutely, we complete honor and acknowledgement to the continued fight for liberation and justice, particularly for Black freedom. But we believe when we get it, everybody will get it.
Amen. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your own call into ministry and the various forms that call has taken, and how you've moved through a number of different roles.
Yeah, George. Wow. Leaning on the everlasting arm. Now leaning. Yeah.
Yeah, you can sing for us.
Yeah. It's been a journey. I just always have tried to be honest and upfront with God, sort of in my prayer life, and I feel like, in my spiritual life, God has taken on that challenge, to kind of be honest with me. And so I just feel like there's just been moments of clarity, whether in community, or from that, still small voice inside me that continue to push me and to take risk, first, just even to leave sort of the tradition I was initially shaped in, which wasn't sort of a UCC disciples, mainline Protestant tradition. I was evangelical, Pentecostal, fire breathing preachers, and, not so much connected necessarily to a previous history of activism and liberation. That's not sort of what I was exposed to, but a deep faith and a deep relationship with God. I was exposed to in that tradition. And so then, kind of coming into the UCC and DOC and, hearing these calls for justice, connecting with my own ancestry and history and the Black church movement of that legacy and work, and hearing that call and trying to figure out, I was sitting there for 14 years as a chaplain, and I was walking kids from juvenile detention over to prison. And at some point it was like, again, I'm serving, I'm doing Bible study, I'm getting them services. And at some point, the Spirit just kind of said, you gonna keep walking them over to the adult prison and praying for them and leaving? Like, do you think that that's all I called you to do? I'm just asking, So yeah, that's literally what it was. It's just, walking these kids, praying with these kids, talking to these kids, hearing their hearts, being in court with their families. Like this ain't it. Like, it was another moment, like different than the moment that I had with my mom, but like and it's been that. This ain't it, So, whether it was juvenile detention, whether it was in New York with my family, or when Mike Brown got killed, or the recent stuff that's been happening in our community, this ain't it. The way that things are shaped in the world as it is, this ain't it. And so just trying to be open to where God is calling me as I continue to observe the world as it is, and in the ways that it shouldn't be, and what is the hope that I'm going to implant by what I invest my life and my resources into, and that are aligned with my particular gifts.
So that's where I'd like to end our conversation. Is where do you see hope? Where do you find hope today?
I mean, to me, it's in the movement. It's for me. I mean, specifically, like, I've always had a particular affinity for people who've been incarcerated, or kids who've been incarcerated. I spent 15 years of my life, in prisons and jails, as a minister. And there's nothing like seeing light when you're in the dark. And so I think those places cultivated my soul and my spirit in a way to see light in very, very dark places. I think my own life and experiences have done that. And, I think some of us, are connected to some gospel that, talks about some dude, that that also experienced some dark places and dark things in his life and in the community to which he was called. And yet from there, he dreamed of a world as it should be, and gave his life and legacy for that world. And we connect with him, that Jesus dude. And we continue to step into the liberating power of his life and his death, to bring that ministry forward into this world, into the world that should be.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Baker, for sharing your wisdom about the tension between the world as it is and the world as it should be. And we really thank our partners at the pension boards of the UCC for sponsoring this session. We are inviting people now into our final session of reflection groups for the next 30 minutes. And we hope that you'll do that. The groups are sponsored by Kittleman and Associates, and we really appreciate them sponsoring the session of reflection groups. And we want to thank Michelle Sadler for that. And we're going to have just a brief message from Michelle Sadler with Kittleman and Associates now.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Sadler, and on behalf of Kittleman and Associates, I'd like to congratulate Chisholm on this 83rd annual gathering. Kittleman and Associates conduct search consulting exclusively.
So I invite people now to go to reflect groups, and then we'll look forward to seeing everyone back for closing worship at 3 Eastern, 2 Central, 1 Mountain, 12 noon Pacific. Thanks again to Dr. Baker for this great session. See you in reflection groups and then in worship.